Today's top picks from Reuters Breakingviews: how market benchmarks like Libor could be regulated out of existence, and why central bank stimulus alone won't solve the crisis. With me now to discuss these stories is Reuters Breakingviews assistant editor Robert Cole. Good morning, Robert.
Hiya.
Let's start with Libor. You say that the benchmark, like Libor, may be regulated out of existence. What will take its place?
Well, I think there are plenty of sort of more market-based benchmarks, 3-month money rates, for example. So, in a sense, Libor wouldn't be much missed. I think the focus of this piece is it looks to us as if the regulators, both here and in Europe, in the UK and in Europe, are so concerned about the Libor benchmark that they want to regulate it, and that actually that might mean that it loses its value because people will wait for some time for this to happen. And does seem to be an inevitability about that. There does seem to be some things which can take its place, but I think we need to register one little note of caution here, which is that Libor was dreamt up as a by the market for the market. Now, clearly, it's been abused, and the market, and the participants in that have only themselves to blame. But it is a bit of a shame, I think, that benchmarks such as this, which you can criticise for being survey-based and liable to abuse and so on, but the opinions, if they were honest, the opinions of traders and market participants are sometimes just as valid as the prices at which they're willing to trade. And I think it would be naive as well to think that a transaction-based benchmark isn't open to manipulation as well. If you have enough money, you could move that benchmark as well. So I think we need to recognise, that what we need here is some integrity among the people who are going to be coming up with these numbers.
Well, that's getting to the heart of it, isn't it? It's not whether it's transaction-based or survey-based. It's
Absolutely.
The integrity of who's participating, and you can't change that overnight.
Well, you can't change that overnight, but if the regulators were talking about regulating the integrity of market participants, I wouldn't have a problem. Regulating Libor in itself, I just wonder whether that's going to be a fruitful exercise.
But maybe if there's a more stable, a stronger framework in place, then better integrity, or the higher ground, if you like, would follow in time, because there'd be less room to abuse that system. Absolutely.
But I'm also one of those who doesn't actually believe in the overarching, all-powerful nature of regulators, and that regulators, because if you like, they sit outside the system of commerce, are not always in a good position to be able to regulate. And at the end of the day, it is up to market participants to take care of their own behave themselves, if you like.
But the last few years have shown that they can't be left alone to do that.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that at all, but that may be a subject for another day.
Perhaps tomorrow. Let's move on to central banks and the stimulus that they're pumping in. Obviously, 3 major central banks in the last few days have acted forcefully. You say that alone won't turn around the global economy, but if they don't act, who will?
Well, I'm not quite sure that's the right... The point here is that we're harking back to John Maynard Keynes in a very, very great phrase. He talked about pushing on a string, and that clearly pushing on a string is not useful. And I think what we're saying here, really, in the first instance anyway, is that the fact is that further central bank stimulus, be it in terms of reducing interest rates or easing credit and quantitative easing, just doesn't seem to be working. Right? That's the thing that we've got to appreciate, and that the markets have to swallow that. And that seems to be the evidence in the aftermath of these moves. It may have worked in the first instance, but it has this sort of declining returns. What is done in place of it Well,
government action, fiscal stimulus, where possible, surely.
There may be a role for government action in terms of fiscal stimulus. I think more importantly is government action in terms of structural reforms and in terms of investment in infrastructure and in the economic viability of the system. But at the end of the day, you know, we all look to the governments, we all look to the regulators. At the end of the day, it's about individuals, individual companies, individual firms, individual traders taking their own responsibility and trying to build economic confidence and growth themselves rather than wait for anyone else to come and take care of us.
We might be in for a long wait. Robert, thank you very much. That's all for now. My thanks, as always, to Breaking Views' Robert Cole. For more agenda-setting financial insight, do watch our US Breaking Views show every day at 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 British Summer Time. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.